Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, today is the third day in our retreat. So it's the time for our today's discourse. May everyone take comfortable seat and give the consent with 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhasse. Punnaca parang ananda bhikkhu amanasi karitva manussa sanyang amanasi karitva aranya sanyang patavi sanyang patissa manasi karoti ekattang tassa patavi sanyaya cittam pakkhandati pasidati santitati adimucchati iti. Dear Dhamma friends, each day in our retreat we have regular time allocated for a Dhamma talk or a discourse, and from the beginning we have introduced and informed that we are taking the particular Chula Sunyatha Sutta, a discourse known as minor abiding in voidness, as the main topic for this whole series. And there the Buddha take a chance to introduce this abiding of voidness in number of ways, because of Venerable Ananda's invitation, and it appears that even Venerable Ananda is not sure about what does it mean by the abiding of voidness. So therefore, it appears to be a very good question. The Buddha take the chance to explain in a very systematic, from known place onward, or whereby the Buddha take the place where the Venerable Ananda raised the question. That was the Migaramatupassada, that is Pubbarama, the eastern side of the Jetavana, the famous place where Buddha used to stay most of his time. And if I am to summarize the last 2 talks, the Buddha give an example to Venerable Ananda. He says, Ananda, now we are living in this monastery. So therefore, as far as we are in the monastery, we have nothing to worry about the household problems like taking care of the elephants, cattle, horses, mares, and all the other draft animals and the domestic animals. Equally, as far as we are living in the forest, we have nothing to worry about the gold, silver, and the other money aspects. And as far as we are living in the forest, we have nothing to worry about the gathering of the male and females, standing on ceremonies. So therefore, even though we are free of disturbance related to this rearing animals and animal husbandry and monetary aspects, as well as other human social problems, we have to attend to this forest atmosphere. This is kind of a thing we are living in. So therefore we know, as far as we know we are living in the forest, we can do away with this, all the other the gross problems, and therefore it is worthwhile to dwell upon or appreciate upon the present living in the forest. And as far as we are living in the forest, we have to attend to the monks, we have to attend to this forest, and we know it. By knowing, we can get rid of all the other gross things. So therefore the Buddha indicate, now we are abiding by voidness related to the disturbances regarding the rearing animal and animal husbandry. We are free from distractions and disturbances from the money aspects, devoid of and we are free from all the other the village problems, gatherings, standing on ceremonies, and male-female problems. And instead we have this, we have to attend to this forest, we have to attend to this monks. So therefore I would say that this is the abiding of avoidance regarding these gross problems. But now we know we have to attend the forest and the monks. And then the Buddha indicate when and where someone is walking in meditation in the forest as a part and parcel of meditative life, monastic life. If someone is paying attention only to the hardness, softness, roughness, smoothness, heaviness, lightness of the earth or the soul, there we easily calculate and say, as far as we are dwelling upon this touch of the earth with your soul, we are free from the distractions regarding the rearing animal and domesticated animals, money aspects, village social aspects, and monastic aspects, as well as attending to the monks and all the aspects. Now we know we are abiding only by the earth element, that is the hardness, stiffness, the softness, all the kind of thing. So much so we have now full respect, full face-to-face with the earth element, and we know why we are appreciating, abiding by this friction between the leg and the soil, earth. We know by understanding that friction, that distraction, that interaction, we can do away with all the rest of the enumerated friction. That is why the Buddha says, Punachaparam bhikkhu, Ananda bhikkhu, Ananda, well-instructed meditator, amanachikaritva manusa sanya. He is never dwelling upon, never thinking about the household affairs or other social aspect. He is not attending. And amanachikaritva aranya sanya. He is not attending to the friction regarding the or duties regarding the monastic life, but pativisanyam paticca manasikaroche kattang. He is so concentrated, he advert his mind solely face to face, one thing at a time and that done well kind of atmosphere. Therefore, tassa patavisanyaya chittam pakkhandati. Due to this way of approach, his mind plunge into this perception towards the perception of the hardness, perception of the softness, perception of the heaviness, lightness, smoothness, roughness. And so much so he plunge into, penetrate into the perception of the earth. He is free from all the other gross perception and distractions. And if he or she is very keen and very resolute in the mind, he or she can experience herself or himself with confidence. As far as my mind is face to face with left leg, touch of the left leg on the ground, touch of the right leg of the ground without a gap in between, without wandering mind, without daydreaming, without fantasizing. So confidence comes. And more to practice, Buddha says steadiness. That means when attention changing from the left leg to right leg, there's a kind of a unsteady situation. And again from the right leg to left leg, unsteady situation. So therefore, if he or she is very attentive and manage to maintain the already earned mindfulness on the left leg without much of a distraction to the right leg. And that very mindfulness established on the right leg without much distraction to the left leg, that is called steadiness. And it is one's own experience, one's own seasoning of the practice, one's own maturity through the steadiness, and more resolution, resolute faith arises. The rest of the whole world is worrying about their draft animal husbandry, their assets. They are worrying so much of monetary aspect, whether dollar is increasing or escalating or reducing. Other people are worrying about what the others' impression upon me and my impression upon others, and how can I make a role model, a good example, like always worrying about the social aspect, ethical aspects. Or otherwise, distraction regarding the monastic life or monastery, or the other co-meditators. Now, your resolution is so much that all the things you can get rid of by mere attention, mere mindfulness, by mere diligence, by mere vigilance, that you verily know my right heel is now touching on the ground, and I feel the hardness of the ground, and comparatively my left is soft. That is why the hardness I can feel. So you understand details, natural characteristics, individual characteristics, intrinsic characteristic, then and there under the nose experience of hardness of the earth and the softness of your heel. When you slowly moving, you can see this weight is shifting to the front area of the leg and slowly to the toes, and then again left leg is going to take the weight by the heel, and there you can see the heel of the right leg is so and so. Now this weight shifted to the left heel, and the discrimination and the difference between the right heel and the left heel so much, and mindfulness is steadfast, continuous, and you are so closely, immediately, vigilantly and diligently imbibe, penetrate, plunge into this hardness or the earth element, so much so you are devoid of all the frustration, all the mental tension, all the burning and torturing regarding the rest of the matters. So this is the point Buddha is making. And give an example. Imagine a drum eye. When you are putting a skin over the drum and pull to all the sides and put pegs, 100 odd pegs, ultimately you make the drum eye or the side is very flat. Something like the very flat thing, very easy. If the ground is so flat and smooth, very easy to walk. Instead, if you are walking in a very rugged, thorny, unclear ground, you find how much it is stressful, how much it is distracting. Instead, if you can find such a clean drum eye, something like a ground, how much happily you can walk. Exactly the way the frustration and distraction regarding the rearing animal husbandry, agricultural work, financial work, social issues, all the kind of thing, something like that thorny landscape, when and where you are walking, you feel distracted. You don't feel like walking, but it appears like a task, appears like a regimentation, appears like a task force. So you are not entertaining your walking. But instead, if you can walk in a smooth place, you can feel the difference. Exactly the way, when and where you give your full attention to the just mere hardness or earth element or softness of the earth element, and you verily know that now my attention is 100% with the this earth element. So you have to compare it. So much so you are mindful on the earth element, and so much so you are unmindful regarding the rest of the world. So this is the comparison, this is the relativity. Unless otherwise you compare, the big chunk, the lion's share of the distraction may arise due to the worldly matters. Now everything gone. Instead my mind is just distractions are limited to only the earth element. So therefore your mindfulness is defined in two ways. One thing is I am totally mindful, face to face, vigilant, diligent on the earth element. And so much so equally I am free from the rest of the world. I am unmindful on the rest of the world. I am not diligent, I am negligent on the rest of the world. I am not very immediate with the rest of the world. This is the improvement. This is the progress. And in each and every moment, when and where the touch of the earth element happens, when and where you be with it, mindful with it, awareness with it, you can see how much of the frustration you can cut off, how much you can dwell upon, abide by the voidness regarding the worldly aspects. So this is a very sharp point when compared to the early comparisons, and now Buddha take the earth element as the pivotal point or reference point or benchmark, and each and every bearing you take based upon that particular benchmark, on that particular reference point, and easily we can see how much it is related to our walking meditation. So let me explain little bit, even though it is not in the particular sutta, not cited as an example. In sitting meditation, we take myself or me as the sitting posture. Uncomfortable, make it symmetrical and relaxed, and close your eyes and focus the attention to your whole body, and then you can see here, now I am sitting, or here now I am. And if you wish to enumerate, wish to communicate your experience with yet another yogi, how do you experience this mindful moment? What is your experience of just being? What is your experience of just mere sitting? You may find you are dumbbound. We don't have a language to explain it. Even though it is such a solid, under your very nose experience, you can't communicate it. So, you may develop or entertain some doubt. Is it something mind-made, or is it under the very nose and realistic? And if it is so, if I am experiencing the same, why cannot communicate it to others? So that is the place where in the interviews, yogis find very difficult to express their view. They have no language, they don't have communication media. Under such circumstances, great masters, they prepare aphorisms and help guide the yogis. Tell me something, whatever you experience. Whenever it is coming, the master says, is that the one you are going to explain? Is that the one you find difficult to explain? Like you have to give some kind of a guidance. Then only the yogi will understand how to express very experience of just being, just sitting, just be mindful. For example, whenever you are fully diligent and vigilant and mindful in the present moment while sitting, whenever you are going to express in a positive way, you find very difficult. So you can put it in the negative way. As far as I am sitting comfortably, I can feel I am not dead. But usually that is not the way in our common language to express this just being. Or equally you can say, I am not sleepy, I am not unconscious. So it's a very good explanation of your being. So now if you wish to establish this experience, not only understanding your own internal communication experience with yourself, but to communicate the other one, next time also when you sit comfortably and attentive to your sitting posture, you will try to understand what does it mean by that I am not dead. What does it mean by what I am not sleepy? What does it mean by that I am not unconscious? That is called diligence, the vigilance, the awareness, the mindfulness. You can understand how much we have to define these terms, because our attention is always outwardly. Anything outwardly, we have 1001 words, examples, epithets, idioms, all the kind of thing. But whenever the mind goes inwardly, you find difficulty. So therefore you have to learn this communication as if you are learning the second language. So that is why the discussions or interviews or Kamatahan Suddha Karnawa in Sinhala is important in the meditative life. So when and where you come and experience that I am not dead, experiencing verily that I am not sleeping, experiencing under your very nose that I am aware, I am not unmindful, I am not unconscious, that very experience is not coming out of meditation. It's a human endowment. From the birth you had it. But your mind being misdirected, conditioned and bewildered due to so much of external extractions, and the whole world is promoting, appreciating as far as you are extrovert. So you can write poems, you can paint pictures, you can do sculpture, and you can get that honorary degree or dishonorary degree. Everything is pulling you out of the present moment. Therefore, Venerable Jnanaponika, the founder of the Buddhist Publication Society, he says, for this bewildered human mind to bring the attention inwardly, it is not a single human simple task. This is the task of the omniscient one, the task of the Samma Sambuddha. So he is so bold, even the whole world is extrovert, even the whole world is phrasing and giving the gain and everything towards the extrovertedness, but the Buddha says that is maximum. If you go, you know only 50%. No one can go to the maximum. But instead, as far as if you are do not know your internal experience, under the nose experience, the present moment experience, you are paralyzed. Your knowledge is paralyzed. You are eccentric. You are lunatic. So why don't you give little bit of weight, little bit of appreciation, little bit of time to understand here now I am. So therefore, more and more you listen to and attend to these teachings, you are exploring inwardly. So as far as this inward journey is concerned, Venerable Jnanaponika, he personally with his experience, he says, the mental factor called mindfulness is the only one credible, reliable in this inward journey. Usually in the traditional, conventional books, it says the faith, the energy, the mindfulness, concentration and the wisdom. 5 faculties are there. They are called spiritual faculties. They are always helping your forward journey, inward journey, spiritual journey. But he very sharply or meticulously he says, yes, faith is very good for you to proceed in your inward journey, but at the time the faith become incredible, it forgo yourself, and it is leading you to the wrong teachers, wrong teachings, and ultimately you will be bewildered. Therefore faith is not credible. And sometimes the energy is so much you feel like meditating overnight like, but at a time that very energy mislead you, leading to the sloth and torpor, slimy mind. Ultimately you can't get up. So they are good, they are jumping and giving some results, but at the time due to completely negative thing. So therefore the faith, energy kind of mental factors are incredible, unreliable, but instead mindfulness, he says, has a specific character. Once you introduce into your life, it never forgoes yourself. No betrayal. He give an assurance, even if you are going to die in this life without achieving your goal, that very character of mindfulness definitely will shift from this life to the next life. And when and where you are going to start the mindfulness meditation in the next life, definitely that will be contributive. Faith has no that much of assurance. Energy has no that much of assurance. Concentration has no that much of assurance. Knowledge has no. So when I, as a person, when I heard this is the only thing accumulating experience. Whatever the failure you are going to have, the level that you have already earned, it is not revertible. It's ever forwarding, advancing. So therefore, when and where you try to be mindfulness, of course you will be dumbbound. You can ask someone, what is the meaning of mindfulness? How do you experience when you are mindfulness? And the lifelong experimenting. But some or the other, if you're going to start, you yourself will define mindfulness in different ways, and more you attend to it, just like when you are in the walking, you try to be mindful on the right leg, left leg. Slowly, you will enter into this mental state. You develop the little by little confidence, and you see steadfastness due to your past mistakes. Ultimately, you develop kind of a resolution. This is what mindfulness means. But that is your mindfulness. That if you're going to talk the same thing to your fellow meditator, he or she may be defined the same thing in different ways. So therefore, mindfulness is, it has its own doubt whether it is properly translated, this term sati, into English by using the mindfulness. Some people translate it as the awareness, and some people try to see this as vigilance, the diligence. So that means a lot of shades of meaning. So we, in the today in the discussion, there was a question how one can for sure come to know whether I am mindful or not. So I would like to take this issue to handle this mindfulness case in a theoretical base, but don't take it as the hard and fast and everlasting answer. But I hope that will be contributive to your existing theory and theoretical and practical knowledge. In the commentarial exegesis, the mindfulness has its own character. It says apilapana lakkana. It says the pilapana lakkana means the opposite of mindfulness is floating on the surface. Apilapana means plunging into the body. So therefore, the commentators, in order to prove and in order to depict, give examples. If you throw a cork or piece of rigiform to the water, it wobble on the water according to the waves and the wind. It never penetrates into, so it is called superficial. It's wobbling. It is lighter than water, so therefore it never penetrates. So our untrained mind, unmindful mind is jumping from one object to the other without penetrating single. Yet another example the Buddha cited was, if you look at a mad monkey jumping from the one branch to the other branch without much of calculation, our untrained mind is like a mad monkey. Jumping from seeing to hearing to the smelling to the touching to the tasting and everything. And if you try to keep the track of the mind in our day-to-day open night experience, simply or quickly you will understand mind simply have no agenda. No one can predict next moment where it is going to go. We have so much of characters. We have so much of liking and disliking. We have personality traits. But whatever may be, who can make sure that this moment I am going to see and next moment I am going to hear and again I am going to see or smell, touch? You have to understand each and every moment to these senses, to the eye door, visual objects are full of visual objects, different colors and different shapes. And to the ear door, different sounds, male sound, female sound, desirable sound, undesirable sound, reaching sound, far going away sounds, so lot of things. And to the nose, olfactory, good and bad smells, enormous. And to the taste buds, to the tongue, you can Italian food, Indian food, Sri Lankan food, gilampasa, staple food, so much of. And to your body, different car models, different bed types, different linens, different things. When you go there, no end. So at a time when all the senses are open, all these objects are open, who can predict that next time I am only going to see or I am going to hear? Simply you have no agenda. To understand that is disheartening. That is why we never plunge into that, we never consider into that. We are just floating, wobbling on the sensuous pleasure. That is called consumerization or luxury. And more mind become luxurious, more and more it become consumerization, more and more it is unruly, more and more it is bewildered, more and more become naughty, more and more it become frustrated, tension. And imagine good father and mother, good parents, wish to give all the facilities to his or her progeny in so much of visual objects, so much of sounds, so much of smells, so much of tastes and so much of luxuries, and consider I treated my child the maximum. But that is the way to send the child mad. Because parents do not know, therefore they do what is easy, but definitely this is not the thing. The Buddha, what you call the compassion. So therefore, if someone is going to pay the attention, whether my mind is penetrating and plunging into one object or wobbling here and there and floating, according to the waves and according to the wind, you will understand there is no governability, there is no agenda. So to understand that itself is threatening, understanding that very thing itself is disheartening, that is why many hate meditation. Meditation easily you can do away with, and not only that, non-meditators find fault with the meditators, thinking that why you are torturing your mind to keep into a single object, instead of we have good eyes due to the past good karmic forces, we have good ears and we have good enough visual objects, enough sounds. Why should you restrain yourself? It is like a self-imprisonment or putting yourself into the open prison camp. So therefore they find we are lunatics. They call meditation centers as asylums. They don't like it. I think, I don't know. I can really understand their rationality because they have never heard about mindfulness. They have only know the wobbling mind, the superficial mind, changing one to the other. They know the monkey mind. And they never think there is an alternative in the world. But in the other way, the plunging mind, apilapana lakkana, not wobbling character means, if you throw a piece of iron, if you throw a piece of stone into the water, in the very place it plunge, and it never ceases till it penetrate, go down to the body of water, rest just on the bedrock. So this is the difference between the unmindful mind and the mindful mind. Mindful mind select the object and try to penetrate, and that is called pakkhandana, or penetrating, or apilapana. So that is the way you can get one thing and be thorough on one thing. For that you have to penetrate into one thing. This is defining the term meaning of the insight meditation. Insight meditation is penetrating, seeing through, going through. So therefore mindfulness has a very close relationship to this insight meditation. Otherwise mind is bewildered, unruly, jumping from one to the other. So much so it is accumulating uncertainty, so much so frustration. So therefore whenever you come to know that there's a mental factor concomitant called mindfulness, never without conscious effort, never without proper instructions, mind naturally never go inwardly. It's a universal truth. Naturally, by itself, mind never go inward except the Buddha to be. He was the only person thought the way out may be inward, but his father was against, mother was against, wife was against, whole clan was against, and the whole world was against. So he went against the grain, upward stream, and he thought, never mind. Instead of satisfying the fathers, mothers and the clan, he thought this may be the way out. So that is why the mindfulness is such a thing. It is going against the grain. So therefore, unless otherwise you have radical reflection, unconventional reflection, you will be just a Buddhist. You will be a traditional Buddhist, but you will never understand what the Buddha Dhamma is. So we are born Buddhist, Sri Lankans. We are very happy telling that we are in the Dhammajiva and we are the owners of the Buddhism and we know everything. We are the people teaching the Westerners. We are the people distributed the Buddhism to Burma and sometime to the Thailand and even to India. We are very happy. But you just go and ask any Sri Lankan Buddhist, what does it mean by the mindfulness? They will completely no clue. They will ask that term mindfulness is Buddhist. So much so. This is what happened to me in the age 26. When by accident I was talking with the Australian monk and I just wanted to talk with him because simply he was a Suddha. Oh, he's a white fellow. That was only my attraction. So I went to talk and he kicked me. Useless, you are useless fellow to talk about. But that attracted me much than a very calm and serene monk. He was ready for fighting. And then I asked him, why you are kicking me out without understanding? He says, you fellows are thinking about that you are born Buddhist and you know all the Buddhism and kind of thing. I would like to ask, what does it mean by mindfulness? Then I don't know. I got a credit pass in my the 10th grade exam, so it is a great achievement. But I never heard about mindfulness. That is why I am telling you, you all are useless fellows. Then I told Bhante, if that is the case, why do you want to teach me? No, useless, hopeless. You are not ready. You always try to brag about the Buddhism, but you don't know what is the teaching of the Buddha. Then I told Bhante, give me some weapons and fight. Otherwise, without a weapon, I can't fight with you. Give me little weapons, I will learn and study, and I am ever fighting. 8 years. 8 years it was. He was giving me books in English. Unlucky enough, my English was not so good. And he can only speak English. He tried his best. But for me, like Greek, no communication. But I found something against the grain. I found it is something radical. Something not conventional. So on the other hand, my mother was a very devoted Buddhist lady. I try my best to communicate with her. She thought that I am losing my senses. She thought I am lunatic. And she was so worried about that I may lose my Buddhist characteristic by associating with Suddha fellow. So you can understand the two sides. As a born Buddhist, that whenever you are introducing this term, mindfulness or vigilance or diligence, never our traditional mind can accept it. Traditional mind is fully conditioned to wobble on the surface, and from jumping to one thing to other thing, and never penetrate into, because penetrating is anything, is threatening, challenging. And all the values will go scattered off. And you have to be very radical about your likings and disliking. You have to be very radical about your personality traits. You have to be very radical about your already developed habits. So therefore, easily you can't take this challenge to penetrate it. Of course, you are penetrating into the earth element or air element or breath or leg. But ultimately what happens is that penetration never ceases at the materialistic level, never ceases in the concrete level. It slowly go into the immaterial part, and ultimately your personality, your emotional character, your likings and disliking, your habits, everything you can look as if a second person, as if an outside. So very start for this whole journey is the way that you are observing the in-breath and out-breath in a choiceless way. Just observe for the sake of observation. So this is what we call mindfulness, or otherwise you just penetrate into the selected object, we call the primary object, and then go into, without any expectation, good or bad, but incessant way, you apply again and again and again. So therefore, you have to understand mind is naturally wobbling, superficial, floating. Instead, mindfulness is penetrating, plunging, not wobbling, and go into. So it appears like a destroying of the primary object. Anything to go through means, if you are projecting a laser beam, it will destroy the object and go deep and deep and deep into that. So that means the destruction and the penetration is synonymous. Exactly the way, whenever you focus the attention to anything or awareness especially the mindfulness, that very object, you lose the respect for that, but it appear like physicists looking at something in the scientific way. So now you are looking at your own breath, your own touch of the ground, as a scientist looking at external thing, and see through it as if someone else. So this is what the character of the mindfulness. And whenever mindfulness is working, you bound to get some kind of functions done by the mindfulness. That means more and more you season the mindfulness. Mindfulness is doing something very little, but very steadfast, very gradual way, and that is called asammosa rasa. Whenever you focus into one thing, or mindful become on something, or vigilant become and diligent become something, you have to forget about the rest of the world and be immediately face to face with that object. And verily now you know, now I am in the in-breath, I am not in the out-breath, I am not in sound, I am not in a thought, I am not in a pain, I am in the in-breath. Or when you are doing walking meditation, verily you know, I am on the right leg, a heel or toes, and that must be reinforced or galvanized to say I am not in the right leg, I am not in the sound, not in a pain or thought, I am in the left leg. So this clarity make you are face to face with your object as if you are holding a mirror in front of your face, and you know what is available in that image, nothing but my face. There cannot be any doubt, no bewilderment, so that you confront the object. So this is the function of the mindfulness. When and where mindfulness comes, no split mind, no haziness, no bewilderment. Now you know I am in the in-breath, I am in out-breath, or I am in rising mode of the abdomen, or falling mode of the abdomen, or I am in the left leg or right leg. Leave aside this sitting meditation and the walking meditation. When and where you are in day-to-day activities, you are washing a dish, and while washing a dish, you know what you experience. And meanwhile, you are not thinking about what to do tomorrow and what happened yesterday and what is the other people looking at me and thinking about, and all the kind, that every kind of complication loses the strength of the mindfulness. So therefore the beginner, whenever the mindfulness come into being, manifest, you know where your attention is. And therefore, there's a one beneficial aspect. When and where you become mindful, the memory on that particular object become very deep penetrated. So, for the students, those who are learning, or any artists, those who are grasping the concept and try to put into drawings and the paintings, they are so sharp. They know where to look into. When and where they are looking into, they are forgotten about the rest of the world. So imbibe getting details. So this is the way your mind become very sharp, very polished, very bright. But you are now concerned only very limited thing. But you are trying to understand each and every detail, because therefore you have to keep the object on that given thought moment, just face to face, and no haziness, bewilderment. Definitely you know it is called asammosa rasa, no bewilderment. Therefore, whenever the mindfulness increases, when the mindfulness sets in, whenever you are explaining your meditative experience in the interview, you would say, I am talking about the sitting meditation. Whenever the in-breath happened, I noted it as in-breath, and whenever I am noting the in-breath, these are the characteristics of the in-breath. I feel it is in the right nostril, at the tip, or sometimes I feel cooler, or it starts very slowly and at the middle it is gushing, and towards the end it is again slowing down. And in the gushing air, inward, it appears like a jerks, or it appears like a waves, or it is a very steady flow. All the characteristics are not mixed up with out-breath, not mixed up with anything. Very dead sure I am talking about the in-breath. I know face to face with in-breath, these are the in-breath. So if someone can give such a clear accounting, that means his mindfulness is not only straightening the internal communication, it is promoting the communication outwardly also. No one can challenge it, because this is something happening under your very nose, here now. And I was listening to interviews when I was in Burma, about 18 months, each and every session I have to go and listen. And at the end of the session, Sayadaw says, these people are very educated people, these people are very devoted people, these people came from long distance to practice under here. You see, they are talking about the cock and bull stories. They never say, I am talking about the in-breath. They never take the characteristic of the in-breath. Instead of they say what happened yesterday, what is going to do tomorrow, all the kind of thing. Never they talk short to the point. So teachers are so exhausted. But you're so compassionate, he says, that mistake of the yogi is my mistake, teacher's mistake. So therefore it is my duty to make aphorisms, make use his or her mistakes and correct it, and again bring it to the correct track. So you can understand, you have to understand how much the compassion one the teacher should have, because we have been so conditioned, we have been so corrupted, we have been so misguided to talk about others and here and there, but never short to the point. So therefore, when and where the mindfulness happens, steadfast, direct communication with the object, and that is the discipline in your life. This is what you need in the management. If you do not know that much, whatever the skillfulness you have, that Bombay looking Calcutta kind of communication going to take place. This is what happened in the external world. So whenever the mindfulness happens, the face-to-face with the object, not lack of bewilderment, asammosa rasa, is the one you can feel it. And manifestation, the benefit, the mindfulness give even for the split second. Of course, when the momentum increases, the manifestation and the benefit is tangible. But even for the split second, it says you are completely secured. Your protection is there, because whatever you are looking, whatever you are focusing, whatever you are attentive of, whatever your awareness is totally face to face with you. You are not bewildered, so therefore what you are talking is true to the word, never imaginary. It is not concept, it's reality. This is the only time you are under your very nose, and therefore what you are telling is confident. You are eyewitness. Never this happens. We are so much respecting the second-hand knowledge, the scientist's knowledge, historian's knowledge, physicist's knowledge, that knowledge and this knowledge, and that our education is completely second-hand. You have been poured with so much of information in the lecture room or in the classroom. So if you can vomit the same thing exactly in the question paper, you will get the A grade. If you are going to add anything from your mind, you will fail. This is the education means. So therefore, this education makes sure you never pay attention to here and now. Whole life is extrovert, And you will be endowed with so much of fame, gain, money and everything, but you miss the bus. Instead, if you are looking at, and if you know, now you are talking about your first-hand experience, eyewitness, I see the in-breath, this is what the in-breath is. No one can challenge. So this is the Buddha explained, this is the confidence and this is the security. So mindfulness is the highest, strongest security one can have instead of having a assistant outside, private army outside, weapons outside, money outside, account balance outside, insurance outside. All are incredible, unreliable, but this mindfulness you develop then and there with the under the nose experience, ever accumulating steadily. And therefore, when and where mindfulness going to gather the momentum, you find more than the Buddha, more than any teacher, your past mistakes are the teacher. Through your mistakes only you develop your own foundation. So therefore each and everyone at the beginning of the mindfulness appear like just a newly born baby. They are all are beginners. So we all in the same status. We can't say he is or she is upper, higher and greater than oneself. Each and everyone have to assume that I am a beginner, I am just learning, just to face with one object. Therefore, when and where the mind is face to face with the object, you develop the confidence, lack of fear. So therefore, you trust yourself. This is the only reliable source. So therefore, even though it is very painfully slow at the beginning, ultimately once the momentum gathers, you know that your own past experience, your own first-hand experimentation is the one producing the sound base. So therefore the Buddha says, I am not a savior, I am just tell you the path. But if you are not put into the practice, please don't call my name in front of the altar and tell him, please, dear Buddha, save me. Never, don't expect any kind of that kind of a jokes with Buddha. No, is it, I have given the lesson, you practice. Definitely early efforts are failure, but each and every failure is ultimately going to give your own confidence, that confidence ever gathering. And the proximate factor, the commentators citing is your own past mistakes. Mindfulness is the foundation for the mindfulness. By faith, nothing, no relationship with to the mindfulness. Mindfulness, mistakes of the mindfulness is the kayadi sata satipatthana padatthana. Whatever the effort you have taken, that same very effort ultimately make a good foundation, and upon that only you develop the confidence. So that mindfulness, once you develop, even if you become expert, you can't give it to your son. Never. No. Only you can say, you can phrase and you can tell the method and kind of thing out of compassion to the son, but that son has to develop itself. And we'll say your neighbor is utter enemy. Whenever you develop mindfulness, the neighbor cannot rob it. They can't pull it out of you. Because that is not separable, it is not revertible, it's definitely helpful. And the other thing is, once you develop mindfulness, once you learn the art of developing mindfulness, no one can disturb you to tell, I will stop your mindfulness life. No one can come and hinder you. Which is beyond someone's executive powers. No one has authority to stop the mindfulness or to start mindfulness of the someone. That is why the Buddha says, I know the value of this mindfulness, I phrase my fullest. But unless otherwise you put into practice, just by listening or just by appreciating, make no much of a difference. And now you come to this kind of a sutta, or Maha Chula Sunyatha, you use this very mindfulness whenever you experience the earth element in walking meditation, and once you be face to face with the earth element, you can verily understand, now I am not attending to the perception of household thing, external worries. I am free of these distractions because my mind is mindful with right under the nose, the earth element. So therefore, becoming the earth element right under your nose is your past effort. The direct gain is, so your mind is protected in this earth element, therefore external whole worries or tension you can do away with. So both of them you must understand, external unmindfulness and internal mindfulness. So this kind of a calculation, more and more you focus into the single thing, your mindfulness sharpness is higher, and by way of attending to single thing, rest of the whole worries in the world, you can topple it off, at least for one thought moment, and now your whole common sense and your whole creativity, your whole progress depend on how can you maintain this thought of mindfulness to the next thought of mindfulness, and again the next moment, and continuity undisturbed. More and more it is gathered the momentum, mindfulness go beyond human capacity. It leading you beyond your human nature, and it is going to the celestial areas, but not at the beginning. Not at the beginning, it is still human, still depending on your effort, your faith, and once it gather the momentum, it go beyond, as if a pilot put the plane into autopiloting after a certain amount of balance. Exactly the mindfulness take the helm. Mindfulness going to take all the important decisions, and you learn the least frictional path or the comfort zone. But it's the advanced kind of a result you are going to get. But at the beginning, you have to foster, you have to facilitate this mindfulness, since it is going against the grain. Natural help from our mind is not towards the mindfulness, it is always toward the lack of mindfulness. Mind is always putting you to the sensuous pleasure, sexual pleasure, the pleasure related to the senses, but that the naughty nature, that naughty distraction is not your personal mistake, it's a human mistake. So therefore just don't worry thinking, even though I am observing precepts, even though I am trying to be mindful, still the mind is wandering, daydreaming, fantasizing. Less and less it is becoming face to face with the primary object. Often it is go out. Don't think it is a personal, your own question. Anyone, honestly speaking, that is the truth. But even then, more and more you put forth effort, your focal point will be little tiny one, and fully imbibed, fully penetrated, fully confident, fully steadiness and resolution happen, so you are free from the friction from the outside. That is how you take the faith upon the earth element whenever it is prominent. You trust upon the earth element or air element, whatever it is prominent. The earth element is not our final aim. Air element is not the final aim. But take that the air element as a pivotal point, you can throw away all the kind of other frustration. That is why the Buddha gives such a neutral object, that means elementary characteristic, trust upon it, be fully thorough upon it, and make sure by being thorough upon this single characteristic of elementary characteristic, you can do away with rest of the worries, rest of the frustration. So before ending the talk, I would like to give a little hint where this talk is leading according to this particular discourse. So far in the discussions and in the interviews, it became somewhat surfaced or prominent. For example, whenever you give more and more attention, more and more time, more and more face to face with the breath, air element, at the beginning the breath becomes very gross, very rough. But when and where you keep the familiarity, association, face to face, immediacy, that gross breath becomes subtler and subtler. Ultimately, you go to the subtlety, subtlest point. Now imagine your frustration upon the breath becomes subtle, your frustration upon the breath becomes subtlest. So your mind is less and less with friction, less and less with frustration, less and less with the distraction. So therefore you trust, you take the air element as the benchmark, and more association, this earth air element has the character, it is slowly dwindled off, wear and tear, disappearing. So each disappearance means you are doing away with your frustration, you are doing away with your mental tension, you are doing away with the distraction, you are doing away with the friction, and more you go to the least frictional part. So with that idea only, with the reduced to the earth element or air element, and when and where associating more and more, the air element become unperceivable. You can't experience it, but even then you know you are not dead. Even then you know you are not sleeping. Even then you know you are mindful. Now we are slowly going to the matter to antimatter or dark matter, and still the mindfulness is steadfast. Still the mindfulness is crossing the paradigm and see the dwindling of disappearance and subtlety of the breath without losing your confidence, without entertaining doubts. You have to understand this is the way the mindfulness is progressing, so much so your benchmark is disappearing. Your pivotal point is disappearing. But still the mindfulness is steadfast. Still the mindfulness is leading you. And this is a kind of a thing, whenever someone is experiencing, he or she, if it is put into the proper order, will come to know, never in this very life, maybe never in this past samsara, we have experienced this kind of a depth, this kind of a penetration. But even then mindfulness never betray you. Even the object is there, mindfulness is on the object. More and more familiarizing the object become dwindled off, subtle, and once disappeared, now you develop kind of a mindfulness. It's called signless. It's called no object. It's called no gravitational force. But still, your journey is undisturbed. So this is it's a bottleneck. It's a very critical point. Our values and our likings and dislikings have to undergo huge evolution, huge revolution, not evolution, of course evolution, but a revolutionary way. And your whole personality view, all your habits, everything will be reshuffled. Because so far our attention, our mindfulness was on the materiality and on the matter. Now mindfulness slowly go into the other sphere, saying bye-bye to the matter. So there the Buddha says, when and where someone is developing akasananchayatana, that's the antimatter, lack of the matter, still the Concentration continues, mindfulness continues, but no reference point, no benchmark, no pivotal point. And astronauts, they say, as far as the rocket is leaving the earth, with respect to the earth, it can understand the speed, it can understand the direction, because the earth is slowly disappearing, and their shuttlecock, their shuttle is appear with respect to the earth. But once the earth become a tiny drop in the space, they don't know whether they are moving or not. They don't know their direction because there's no reference point now. Everything is tiny little dust. So therefore their body has to now learn. They are in the maximum speed in the human experience, but no reference points, no passing things. So body is undergoing, the mind is undergoing huge changes. And after a long time, when they live in the no gravity area, they found if they live only 1 month in the area where there is no gravity, their strength of the bones reducing by 1%. Because their body is now nothing to get the weight. So therefore it is floating, so calcium deposits reduces. Their reference points and the comparison, they don't have it. And on the earth, you have 24 hours cycle for the sun. Now all the time the sun is there. No night, no day. So their chemical body, the metabolic functions, day and night, everything, all gone for a 6. So very difficult for the control room to tell them, you have to do this and that. Therefore they give the control to the astronauts themselves and take their pulses, take their comments, everything, because this is something new. Exactly the way, whenever the mind loses the materiality, whenever the mind loses the touch of the air, whenever the mind loses the touching point of your breath, and still you know you are not dead, still you know you are not unconscious, still you know you are not unmindful, and then you see kind of a journey going to the positivity or existence or availability to non-availability, not existing of the material, but the life is the life. It is like a dead in this life and reborn in the another life like. But still, I would say, during this time, the maintaining of the confidence in one's life and not to entertain doubts is a task. Very difficult. As far as you have breath to see, as far as you have the reference point, as far as you have the pivotal point, the benchmark, you have the, what you call conceit, comparison. This is a very deep-rooted defilement in our life. But when and where the object disappears, the sign disappears, the benchmark disappeared, your conceit, the comparison, has to develop new dimension. And when and where it happens, you feel like you lost the mindfulness. You feel like you lost your concentration. You feel like you lost your meditation. And you feel losing of your orientation, connection, and therefore sweating, nauseatic, muscle dance, and wavering. So much of thing happens. Sometimes when you are closing your eyes and observing the just merely disappearing, the breath, and still try to maintain the mindfulness, all of a sudden your limbs going to get jerks. And all of a sudden you feel heat patches, hot patches, cold patches, heat bubble, coal bubbles and animal crawling along your body and water droplets are going. Many things are happening. Hardly you can discern whether it's a concept or a reality. But everything appears like conceptual at a time. But when you open your eyes, yes, nothing has happened. But internally, so much of revolution, so much of evolution taking place. So, your value system, your liking and disliking is undergoing metamorphosis, changing from one to the other. It's happening so fast, hardly one can cater for, hardly one can sustain it. So those who are with the quick wit have a lot of merits, have a lot of past experience. They try to maintain this trend unhindered, without doubt. But those who are doing it for the first time, they entertain 1,001 doubts, asking so much of questions, uncertainty and lack of orientation. This is a very good progressing thing. But the particular yogi is feel like situation is going beyond the control, and therefore natural trend is to force breathe, open your eyes, or to break this trend, or get up and go, or otherwise fall into sleep. Either too much of activity or lack of activity happens. So this is how, when and where your frustration reduces, when and where tension reduces, when and where your torturing nature reduces, when and where your burning nature reduces, the mind can't maintain the natural balance. Because so far in the samsara or in this life, it was so accustomed with this tension, frustration, so it has become just like the morning meal, lunch and the dinner life. If you do not get your proportion, the proportion of the tension, you can't calculate and everything. So therefore the Buddha presented this method. Day by day you are slowly reducing and come back again to the gross breath, again reducing and come back to the gross breath. Slowly you acclimatize, train yourself to go to from having to not having, known to unknown, egoistic idea to non-egoistic idea, explainable to unexplainable. Whenever you accommodate it, whenever you season it, you find it is not a big thing at the end of the out-breath. Simply at the end of the out-breath is having material to non-materiality is happening, but we fail to understand it. At the end of the out-breath, you ceases to feel the breath, and there was a gap. And then in-breath starts, in between gap, not in your record, not in your memory. Now, once you develop and understood the complete cessation of the in-breath and out-breath, and if you can develop the confidence upon that, and if you can understand this is the way you make yourself bold enough to understand the truth as it is under your very nose, once you put into the correct order, next day when you sit, immediately if you are to see the cessation part of the out-breath, you find that deep layers are just exist between two breaths. And if you are on the rising and falling, in between rising and falling. If you are training in the left leg, right leg, you see there is a gap in between. Between two thoughts, between two sounds, between pains, so much of fragile nature is there. But so far we have trained our mind not to see these uncertain things, not to see this gap. So therefore, whenever you see the gap in the first time, definitely it is threatening, it is challenging. But if you keep the track of the mindfulness, you see, even if you see the gap, the mindfulness is steadfast. You can maintain the mindfulness. That is why the Buddha says, as the advancement of this sutta, when and where you specialize the Patavi Dhatu or earth element, ultimately you experience the cessation of the Patavi Dhatu and end up with Akasa, that means space. When you go there, you find your abiding in the voidness is more and more become fulfilled, more and more reaching the 100%, because all the rest of the world gone. Only thing you entertain was the Patavi Dhatu. Now that is also dissipating, happening in under your very control, slowly going. And that is what you call the antimatter. Now your mindfulness is not living on the matter, it is now living on the antimatter. It's called, if you really put into the proper order, the moment you understand this, you start to feel the frictionless way, gravityless way. The Buddha considered this as a gladness, a rapture, full of mindfulness and the comprehension and the pleasure. But never you will start with this kind of positive thing, you start entertaining doubts and all the nauseatic feeling. But by training, once you go there, for the first time in the world, in the human world, you find kind of a pleasure not depending on matter. This is called immaterialistic pleasure. This is called the divine pleasure. This is what you call the Brahma pleasure. So far in our whole life, all the pleasure depending on the visual objects, sounds, smell, taste and the touch. Or otherwise we can say dependent on the eye, ear, nose, tongue and the body. Now for the first time you are going to understand that very moment you are not experiencing through your eye, not experiencing through your ear, not through your nose, not through your tongue, and even not through your body. So much so, you completely forget about the body. You feel like going through a black hole. All of a sudden you get up, again you feel the body, but in between not available. That very area is very mystic. So therefore scientists thought, but the Buddha teaching is mystics. So therefore they refused this as a religion. But now the scientists themselves came to know E is equal to mc square. M is mass, have some relationship with the energy. The mass means the volume, subject to the gravitational force, but energy, you can't call this as any volume or mass. It is not subjected to gravitational force. Einstein put forward the formula. Now matter has a chances to go into the non-matter. Non-matter has a chance to go into matter. So when that happens, physics lost its path. No more physics. Physics is something related to matter. Now relationship is there with the matter and antimatter or energy. So now Buddhists, whenever they have new discoveries, they can't ask interpretation from Isaac Newton. They have to go to the Buddha. Because Buddha was teaching this, when you reduce your matter, ultimately you end up with energy. No gravity is working, no shape, no manner, not falling into the space and time dimension. So therefore, more and more, science become mystic now. Science has to go through the mystic. So therefore now science is putting forward new words, coining new words. Now it is they call mind science. Earlier mind was mystic, mind was the church. Science was the scientist. Now the mind science came into being. So therefore, if you have any kind of a benevolent idea or compassion towards your children, towards your progeny, please teach them little bit of this one, and they will be genius. They will be in the top class educated people in the world. But without that, if only you are going to talk about and teach about what the scientists are going to say, you have to say you are creating a paralyzed mind. in the eccentric mind. So that is why now in America, each and every school in the curriculum, they have put 10 minutes for mindfulness. And nowadays is mindfulness is in the mainstream. Earlier it was in the mystics. So in the Chula Sunyatha Sutta, Buddha is slowly carrying us from the materiality to the non-materiality, and still we are defining, still we are justifying, and we are maximizing the voidness. And if you do not properly understand, it appears like a lost. It appears like a nauseatic. It appears like a boredom. It appears like a monotonous. It appears like a sleepiness. But if you go prepared and go through it, then you see within our life, within our experience, material and non-material both are available. So for that you have to have a proper method. So today we have taken almost 1.5 hours. So let us discuss further according to this sutta tomorrow, and hope this much of information is to encourage your own endeavorance, and hope definitely this will have some bearing into your back at home household life, and of course have a bearing upon relationship with your fellow beings. So therefore get more and more faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration and the wisdom. Continue this more and more to experience the deeper layers of your mind. Thank you very much for the listening.